right, everybody, welcome back to the 1% podcast. Today, I am joined with James, which is sick because I know you, but I don't know you, which is quite nice.
But I'm sure we'll get to know each other a little bit deeper in terms of this, yeah, which is cool.
No, it's good, man. I don't always start in or because I obviously know you now in a sense. So, what do I need to know from your past? Maybe
Yeah.
from upbringing. Let's go from high school. What was upbringing like from high school? Because I know you are all over the world. So, fill me
Yeah,
in from
right.
high school age. What was the setup?
So I'll try and not bore people to death in this one in some shape or form. Name's James Macintosh, originally from South Africa, reside in Australia, moved to Australia end of 2019, like literally about 3 months just before kind of COVID properly hit and shut down the country. So that was a big one. So I moved over at the age of 27, 28, somewhere there. So late 20s, which we can kind of discuss. And I think would actually be a pretty cool discussion point at another stage. But prior to that, South Africa, um, schooling, I was very active, as I think most boys kind of are in terms of that. I was very active, played every sport that I could play to try and stay out of the house. Not because I didn't have a good upbringing or like a good household. Dude, I just hated doing homework. So like the more time that I could like spend in sports, the more excuses I could come up with to like just not be academically sound. Which I wasn't. I wasn't in any means kind of smart in school in any shape or form. I think it was just pure boredom, to be honest. It was one of those things like, and I think this is a common trait, unless you have very good teachers and schooling and people and educators who give a shit.
Yeah,
It can very much be one of those things of like you just tick the box of the course curriculum and you just carry on. I say all of this with an intention or a story or a map of what we're gonna go into and where I
of
think
course.
part of my story might be important to. So, from an education standpoint, just wasn't helped to thrive in any shape or form. And I
No.
think that's something that a lot of people will kind of resonate with from that. So very sporty, and unfortunately within my sporting career, very unlucky with injuries. Right, so and that'll be quite prevalent when you go things. So from a younger age, from about 14-ish, mass concussions. I just got hit in the
Oh,
head a
wow.
lot. Apparently, this dome thing of mine was just like something that everyone wanted to take a swing at. So landed up with quite a lot of concussions um, by the age of 17, coming into 18, I'd had double digits worth of like serious concussions, like pretty
Fuck.
decent in terms of that. And unfortunately landed up in quite a bad like field hockey incident. I played field hockey, MMA, fuck, a whole bunch of shit like that. But played field hockey at a very high level within South Africa, and for my age group, and kind of just in the sport, and took a knee to the back of the head in a game, and landed up like full concussion, like post injury, so like they call it like severe concussion, basically landing up in basically like an induced coma state, right? So for a time
Fuck.
period, for essentially to let the brain kind of heal and recover. And in this time period, I lost all short-term memory. So I had no
Damn.
ability to kind of put things together from about a 24-hour period and a little bit longer than that. So kind of the way that I describe this is us older individuals, maybe this youth of this age won't know it. Remember the movie 50 First Dates?
No, no.
You, oh, Brad, come on. All right. So basically, 51st dates, like this long story short, lands up in an accident. Well, this is your homework for the weekend. When you take
Okay,
some
done.
downtime, you're going to watch 51st dates. Anyways, long story short, when she goes to sleep, she literally forgets the full 24 hours prior. And she thinks that
Oh,
it was like her birthday or her dad's birthday. I can't remember which one it was. And it's like she does the exact same thing every single day, and this guy basically like whatever falls in love with her, and then tries every single day, tries like a new thing to try and like meet her and shit. Anyways, fuck it, that's not how my life was. I wasn't trying to do that, but essentially I would go to sleep every night and I'd wake up and I wouldn't have a clue of what I had done the day before. So it was
fuck.
like it was pretty bad, and that was my final schooling year. Went through a whole bunch of like rehab in terms of that, like a special, like psychological based type of rehab, and landed up. That was final year of school where they didn't want me to write my exams. They didn't want me to do anything in terms of what we call matric in South Africa, because they were concerned that I would fail and then I would be the first person in their entire schooling career to ever fail, which is kind of like one of those, this sucks type thing. And my mom, being a good South African mother, she told them to get fucked. And she was like, this kid's writing and you don't really have a choice.
Yeah.
So my mom, God bless her, and I made her age probably 20 plus years in that time period. She would wake me up every single morning of my exams, like the morning of the exam, and she would teach me the entire subject from like 3 a.m. in the morning until like 7, 8 a.m. in the morning when I'd then go to school and write the exam. So she retaught me the
Oh,
entire syllabus of the year to try and like just help me
sheesh.
pass. Yeah, it's fucked up. And then the next morning I'd wake up and I'd have no idea that I wrote an exam. And that was basically how that worked.
How long did that go on for? Like the
So the short-term memory became it took about a good year to get itself back into a state. Now part of the rehab, like what they kind of did, they taught me how to, for lack of a better word, like fake the memories and fake conversations with people. So what I
okay.
got really good at is if someone would be like, "Oh, like how you going? Like, saw you yesterday, all this." I could manipulate the conversation to get the person to tell me about the day before to then keep everything moving in the right direction. So like I wouldn't, because that was my biggest fear, is like I would meet you, for example, and like the next day, like I'd look at you and be like, I have no idea who the fuck you are. No
Wow.
clue.
Holy
And
shit.
you'd like have a conversation with me like we know each other. And I'd be like, I have no idea. No, and that's literally the
Wow.
extent of what happened. So past school, some fucked, no idea how. Managed to pass, and unfortunately, at this time period, and this is, I guess, life lesson one, or big life lesson one that kind of came into it was because of this injury, they turned around and said to me like, no physical sports for the rest of your life, like
Yeah.
no, and like. Yeah, you looking back on it now at the wise old age of whatever fuck I am now, over 30 or whatever it is, I feel so much like I feel old. But like looking back at it now, I'm like, yeah, that's a logical decision. As an 18-year-old, that's not what we want to hear.
No.
That's never what we want to hear in terms of this. Um, and at the time, I had been with these marks and what I had been accepted into sports science, going to university and going to do sports science. And when I got told, like, hey, like you can't ever play physical sport again, I was like, well, fuck that. Why do I want to do anything with sport? Like I
Yeah.
had this like mass rebellion in terms of like what I would want to do with my life. Not that I wasn't still physically active. I was in the gym. So the big kind of part of this is my mom used to, as part of rehab and stuff, like I used to just get dropped off at the gym, like the local, like Fitness First or local type of gym. And all the trainers there just knew about the condition and the problem that I had, and they would just look after me. And I just like
Wow.
mess around in the gym. Like
Yeah.
that's it. That's all that I would do. I just like go around and train and just mess around and like slowly walk around because at the time one of the big instill or the big issues is I have and I still suffer with like a constant pressure in the head. It
Okay.
constantly feels like a migraine or like there's this pressure buildup from an increase in cerebral fluid and just an increase in intracranial pressure. And what would happen is when I would exercise, predominantly lower body, when I would squat, something like that, the pressure would change and I would have relief. So like
Okay.
I'd squat and like I'd do a rep and then I'd just sit on the bench for like 5 to 10 minutes. And then I'd do another rep and like I'd do that for like 2 to 3 hours because that was the only way that I had pain relief from
Yeah.
this like head being in a vice. Anyways, so the time period I was at the gym, I was still training, and then when they said this, I was like, well, one of my other like loves, and I'm not 100% sure how it all fell in, but I was very inquisitive and enjoyed emergency medicine.
Okay.
So I landed up going to emergency medicine in terms of paramedics. So I went into paramedics. So in South Africa, you can do two routes in which you can become a paramedic. So you can go to university, it's a 4 year university degree, and it just has a slightly different scope of practice. Or you can go the route that I went, where we basically go to like TAFEs type of short-term colleges.
Yeah.
Right, so you do like variances of it. So I did basic life support one, which is whatever the duration is. You do it, and then you do half your course theoretical, and then half your course is on the road. They put you in the back of an ambulance with obviously practitioners, and you learn while you're practically doing things. And I fucking loved that. Like thrived
Yeah, I
at it.
bet. Yeah.
Like that was my jam. Like, dude, it's just I had I had some crazy calls. Like my introduction to paramedics was not uncommon in South Africa, but uncommon
I
in terms
was
of the duration
I was
of
gonna
what
say,
happened.
yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
trauma capital of the world in terms of
Yeah.
what happens. Like, dude, I saw absolutely everything. My first one of my first shifts was 7 deaths that I had to do on like all motorbikes, a gunshot, a fucking stab, like all of this in my first 12 hours. And I was like, yo,
Oh,
so remember, like I'm 18 years old
yeah,
and like going
exactly.
through this, right? So like that was my introduction into that, and then I landed up getting up onto some like contract work for emergency medicine, where I would basically become, traveled around to Africa and into different resorts. For example, like we did Lesotho. So Lesotho is landlocked country in South Africa. They have a ski resort. So I literally
Okay.
went and I was the paramedic on the ski resort for the 3 months type scenario, which is awesome. One of the best learning experiences of my life within my field, so in the emergency medicine field, but within the field of just like treating people and having to figure shit out because
Yeah.
there's no medical facility 3 hours
Nah.
away.
Yeah.
Like that's it. You're it. You're the guy. And
Yeah.
like the shit that we had to do and went down with, and it very much taught me how to problem solve and think very, very quickly,
Yeah.
which later in life
Very
has
ha
become very,
very
very
handy.
handy in terms of that. Yeah. So like, and while I was on this contract, I had the realization of like, I made a bit of an emotional decision at the age of like 17, and I had the foresight to look at this, and unfortunately, paramedics in general, but the lifespan of a paramedic in South Africa is like 3 to 5 years. That's it.
What's
And
the reason for that?
the trauma.
Oh,
So
really? Yeah.
literally
Okay.
what happens is they either burn out, they go into another industry, or they commit suicide. And that gives you a really like that's the 80 percentile of the industry. Like that's how it goes. Right. The
Yeah.
churn rate is massive. Like the for guys to be in it for like 5, 10, 15 years, like those are old school. Like old
Yeah.
school, and they're very, very rare in terms of that. So it's a hard industry. And give you revert back to kind of what I said, one of my first shifts, like 6 deaths,
Yeah.
gunshot. Like that's your introduction. That's like day one. Imagine day one of PT school. You come in and like
Yeah.
everything goes wrong. You're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was kind of it. And I had the realization of like, man, I can't do this for the rest of my life. Like I can't. I physically will not be able to do this for the rest of my life. Like the introduction, the trauma, like those things, it just it's created its residual effects no matter what. Like I
Yeah.
deal with that and kind of what's happened to me. But I sat there and I was like, all right, that's you love training, you really do love that. That's your passion. You love people, and you've now been given this extra tool to problem solve. It's like, oh, we can do something with this. So I started studying like distance learning in terms of exercise science. So after you can only do distance learning exercise science in like I think it's a diploma format, so it's not even not degree,
Yeah.
but diploma. So I started studying that at the same time. And then off the back end of that, as kind of the years progressed, or as the year progressed into it, I then started I'd work shifts as a paramedic, and then my off shifts, I'd work at a personal training studio. And I
Okay.
started kind of like, I started doing everything, right? Doing like just working my ass off in terms of this till the point where, I started establishing myself within the PT space that the hours were more beneficial for me to do that. And eventually moved that over as kind of career one, and then career two became a little bit more niche. I mean, I fell into a very special space within the emergency medicine field, which was what we call TEMS. So that's tactical emergency medicine. So we would go in with any raids, bombings, shootings, stabbings, mass casualty
Right.
events. Like I like guns. Okay, I like guns quite a lot. All right, in terms of that, and that's kind of where the field of it kind of merges together. Essentially, what it's deemed as is it's care under fire is
Yeah.
essentially
Okay.
what you go is what it is. So you go in while the shit's hitting the fan. You provide care and you fire back if and when required, and you get patients out, etc. And
Oh,
that
so you're
became like
actually like in action sort of thing.
correct, correct. At the same time,
Fuck. Okay.
you're in the action from that standpoint. And I became part of like a unit with that.
Fuck.
And that was like that was fucking cool. Like that's we did some cool shit. We landed up like falling into a few like contract based work that was like for the anti-rhino poaching units. So I was a medic
Oh,
for the
okay. Wow.
anti-rhino poaching unit, which was really cool. Unfortunately, sad news in the last 2 weeks. We've seen obviously the
Yeah.
full extension, which is of that of the white rhino, which sucks. You know, I was very fortunate enough to get to see them up close and personal.
Yeah.
So that's if no one is familiar with it, a lot of the times, especially in South Africa and Africa, in terms that like you as the team or teams, depending on how it works, you basically live with them. So you do shifts and you basically live with the rhino. Like you get introduced to them and you follow them around. Like that's pretty much your goal. That's kind of like
Okay.
your plan. So it's pretty beautiful in terms of that aspect, in terms of that. So we do that kind of on the side, I guess, is where that fell into was PTing. Um, at the time, kind of wanted to further my education and found a strength and conditioning facility that would teach me Olympic weightlifting and kind of into that realm as I was kind of getting. I was looking for something. Let's put it that way. I was looking for something from a
Yeah.
sports standpoint to kind of do something, and landed up getting involved within this strength and conditioning facility. We had a barbell club, so did Olympic weightlifting, and then in the off seasons of Olympic weightlifting, we would do powerlifting. So it's kind of like the I got the best of both worlds in terms of the merging of the different sports, and did pretty well at it, man. Like it kind of that's where my career with in sports continued quite nicely. Represented South Africa in 2015 at powerlifting champs or world champs is kind of where that falls into it, and Commonwealth Games. So that was 2015. And this is kind of where life lesson two comes into the mark in terms of these things. Olympic weightlifting was mid-year trials for South Africa. Did fairly well at it, did really well at it from that standpoint, but got very badly injured at S8 champs. So uh, took a clean, bottom of the clean. As I hit the clean, just like knee buckled completely, and I was like, "Oh, that's weird."
Yeah.
Like no pain, but just like like that unusual, uncharacteristic for me in terms of like an easy clean. Should have been pretty chilled. Um, Came out of that comp, took I think second or first as a junior, second overall, something along those lines. And kind of like went back to training next week and like just couldn't squat, just nothing. Just
Oh,
like
wow.
I'd hit the hole and just like nothing would happen. Like very
Yeah.
painful, painful through kind of groin, painful in terms of like walking movements. And we were just like, well, this is like maybe just, we peaked for comp, like it's just that type of thing. 2, 3 weeks went by, went and saw my chiropractor at the time. Um, and I'd like shout out chiropractors that are not snake oil fucking salesman.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
there's two chiropractors that kind of work in this space. I think there's this understanding that chiropractics is both musculoskeletal and skeletal. So like they have to have a good understanding of the body in both aspects. And then you get the chiropractors that sell you fucking crystals.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, we avoid those. The ones that do the crystal and the like the muscle testing. Have you ever had to do one of those with the car? Have they ever tried to do
Yeah.
that? We're like,
T 10-minute
yeah,
appointment for literally fucking
yeah, yeah,
$100.
yeah. Hold the monster and then see if you can
Yeah.
break. Yeah, it's bad for you type scenario. Like, oh, son of a bitch. Anyways,
Yeah.
so not one of those. And she did some like tests on me, and she was like, "Oh, like I want you to go get an MRI. Like I think you've done something to your labrum." And I was like, all right, cool. MRI. So anyone who's had an MRI under dye for a labrum, one, it sucks. So what they do is they take a basically like a spinal or lumbar puncture needle that's about yay
Oh,
big, and they go right through. Think of like where your hip flexor is in the beginning. They go right through into that and then inject the dye into the cavity. so that they can see it. Oh,
Fuck.
not fun. Not fun in any shape or form. MRI comes back confirmed. The story behind this, I mean, sitting in the doctor's office, he literally like he confirms it. He's like, listen, labrum tear, anterior labrum tear, like it's a pretty fucking big one. Like you need surgery from the standpoint. Um, that's my suggestion. Surgery, you can have surgery and then come back and like not saying that you won't be able to complete sports. You can very much kind of do it, but there is obviously like a risk in terms of these
Yeah.
rewards in terms of that. Walked out of the doctor's office and at literally as I walked out, got a phone call and it was my call up to Commonwealth Games in terms of at the end of the year for South Africa. And I was like,
Oh man.
so it was one of those things of like I'd always hit like this top level in sport to the point of like I'll get a call up or I'll get selected for the squad. Like I got selected for SA squad in terms of hockey and then got hit in the head. And then like all of that fell away. And I got this call up and I turned around and I walked straight back into the doctor's office. And the doctor's name was Dr. Chuck, or Dr. Chukic is what it was, Croatian. Uh, and I said, I was like, what happens if I don't have the surgery now? I compete in 6 months and I have the surgery. And he was like, you've torn it, you've messed it up as bad as it is. It's if you can handle the pain, you can do what you want. And I was like, done. So
Okay.
yeah, well,
Well, the thing is,
okay.
if you say that to any athlete in that period, they're gonna do it.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
do you know what I mean? Like it's
Oh,
like fine.
yeah, yeah, no.
So
Yeah. So I like that was like my gold star. Let's do this. So 6 months prep into to Commonwealth. Um, did some of the stupidest shit that I've ever done in my entire life. Right. So at the time, so obviously still paramedic, still had access. So we had access to something called Entonox. So Entonox is an analgesic gas. Think the green whistle.
yeah,
Do you know the green whistle?
yeah,
Except I got it in fucking cylinders. I got it in a cylinder and a
yeah.
gas mask. So, dude, I shit you not. I used to sit there in front of the platform, like on the platform, like squat rack
Oh,
bar would be loaded with the cylinder of gas, and I'd take a hit, and then I'd do a squat to do it, and then I'd sit down, and then I'd like wait for the pain to hit, and I'd take another hit. That is what I did for 6 months. Not medical advice in any shape or form.
do
Do
not do
not, do not
that.
fucking do that. That is how I made it through my prep because that's the amount of pain that I was in. I was in
Jesus.
excruciating pain in terms of this. So went over, competed, came back, literally landed and surgery the next day, went straight in, repair done, came out and like I remember sitting there on the bed and I looked at my mom and I was losing my shit at everyone for some reason. I had a really bad reaction to
The
the
anesthetic, obviously.
analgesic, the anesthetic, and losing my shit. And I looked at them and I was like, they've done something wrong. And my mom was like, what do you mean? I was like, something's wrong. I can feel it. Like this is not right. And they were like, no, don't worry. All that. I was like, my legs numb. They're like, yeah, that's the spinal tap. You know, they do similar to that of obviously in childbirth. They do the same type of thing. All of this. 3 days goes by, like legs not back, like no feeling, like still not can't lock the leg out, can't move it properly. So they're like, oh,
Damn.
like maybe you're just having a bit of like a delayed reaction to this. A week goes by, 2 weeks goes by. Every morning I'm getting up and I go to the shower, and what I do is like I'd turn the shower on boiling water and I'd stick my leg in the shower and I'd feel nothing.
Oh
Nothing
fuck, yeah.
at all. Long story short, they basically when they did the nerve block, the spinal tap, they ended up damaging the nerves into that, and the whole leg just atrophied. So I went down from in about like 3 to 4 weeks, I basically dropped about 15 centimeters in circumference on that leg, and it just fucking bone, nothing. Like it was wild. Off the back end of this, so we started rehabbing this. 3 months comes in down the line, I go for my checkup. And I like say to the doctor, I was like, something's wrong. Like it feels the same. Nothing's changed. And he's like, what do you mean? He does the range of motion test and stuff. And he's like, yeah, this is not good. Like something's not right here. And, let's send you off again. Another MRI. MRI comes back. The tear that was there has retorn. There's two new tears. And the anchors that they had put into the hips, they put anchors into the acetabulum around the labrum to then create this, had pulled out and were basically roaming free in the acetabulum and in the space. Just like, think of it like like a bone spur type scenario, but think about like just freely inside the
Yeah.
joint cavity, just fucking shit up. Going for emergency surgery to repair everything straight off the bat. I come out and I'm like, yeah, fuck, this feels great. Like I could immediately be like, different. Pain's different, everything's different, fantastic. I come out, rehab goes well, first 3 months, we're on point, everything's good. So now we're like, we're 6 months post first op, 3 months post second op. That the 3 month mark hits, I have my checkup, and I'm like, okay. And then just like, just like started waking up in pain all the time,
Yeah.
all the time. Like, would be pain, would be walking in pain, and like it gradually just got worse and worse and worse and worse till the point where like I had no pain relief, and I would literally just lie in bed and just like sob and just be like, I don't know what to do. Like I've got like
No- Yeah.
nothing coming out of this pain. And long story short, I've spoken about this before. Like it got to the point after about 6 months of it where, dude, I was just lying on the bed. I grabbed the gun and I was like, I'm done. I'm out. I'm out. Like I
Yeah.
can't
Fuck.
handle this shit anymore. And at the time, my dog Ziggy jumped up on the bed, and like he looked at me, and I had this realization of like, if I do this, like no one knows he's here. No one knows that like he's just like, who's gonna look after him? What happens if something happens to him? And I put down the gun. And that was that. When I like at that time when that happened, I was like, we have to figure shit out. Landed up, like I was
Yeah,
going to
man.
specialists, I was going to everyone. Like no, everyone just kept saying to me like it was in my head. It was in my head. Like everything looks fine. It was in my head. And I flew out to see my dad in Australia, who was living here at some time. We got in with like a sports, like a sports doctor, but like specialized in orthopedics. Serious case of this. Did what's called a functional MRI, and he literally stood there, like he took me in after hours, it was like 8 o'clock at night in the practice, and he stood there in front of me as he got this, and he's like, your bone has died, you have necrosis, you need a full hip replacement. And I was
Wow.
like, so I'm 20, 20 years old, 21 years old. And like I just had this doc, and he basically said, like, you have full necrosis, like the bone is rotting away. Like that's what's going on. That's why you're in excruciating pain. That's why, like, dude, I was rotting from the inside out. Essentially, is kind of what happened, and all the South African doctors missed this. So now, like, I flew. So I didn't have Medicare. I didn't have that. So I went back home. This doctor and my doctor spoke. Took him convincing to figure this shit out. Eventually, he confirmed it as well. Booked me in for full hip replacement. So full hip replacement in like December 2016. Full hip
Huh.
replacement.
How old were you then?
21. Youngest hip replacement in South Africa, not due to traumatic injury.
Holy shit. How old were you when you did the initial injury?
20.
Oh, fucking hell. Okay, right.
So yeah, so it's all happening in this time period. So full hip replacement. Dude, I come out of that op and I feel like a fucking legend. Everything
I
feels good.
bet.
Like, dude, I went from being in like constant pain to like nothing. It
Yeah.
was it was the
Fuck.
greatest experience of like felt good. So at the time I was working at a gym. I yeah, I was working at a gym. I was doing personal training, coming off the back end of the surgery. Um, and this is kind of where like the repeating of life events occurs. You ever heard that like until you learn a lesson, like life is going to keep putting that lesson in front of you. Now, going into this hip replacement, I just turned around to the gym and I was like, listen, man, like I don't know if I can handle this going on and then having to coach people doing the thing that I love. Like I'm never going to be able to do what I love anymore.
Yeah.
So, and again, emotional decision. Like this is the 18-year-old looking at like, hey, you can't play physical sport again. Well, fuck this. I'm going to go do emergency medicine. And I landed up at the time because of the tactical emergency stuff and all that moving in. I landed up moving into arms dealing. So I landed up dealing guns in South Africa, like legally, not fucking anything dodgy.
Yeah.
But landed up falling into that in terms of the retail space while going through kind of this recovery and like really, really good. And then at the same time, about a year after this, I sat there and I was like, fuck, did I make a mistake again? Yes, I made a mistake again. Uh, and I saw that again, I saw the longevity of what I was doing, and I was like, this is not great. This is really not the long-term plan. Started coaching on the side of my mate's gym that I was training at, and we kind of like I created the same thing again happening. As 2 years
Yeah.
comes down the line, go for my 2 year checkup. Like at the time, maybe 6 months before, a little bit of quad pain. I was like, yeah, fuck, just muscular, all the shit's kind of going on. Walk in for my 2 year checkup. The doctor looks at me and just starts crying. And I'm like, yo, it's like,
That's
one,
not.
that's not a good sign in any shape or
No.
form. And he looks at me, he's like, you have prosthetic loosening. We have to redo the op. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, your body's rejected the implant. So the implant has not fused with the bone. You're 2 years down the line, like it's now causing, so it started causing femur fractures in the femur. It's like this is now a problem. Like you have to get this repaired again.
How did
So
he see that? Is that just from how you walked or?
X-rays. So what happens is
Oh,
when you
okay.
actually look at the X-ray, like the implant in the X-ray, it's supposed to create like a white structure. It
Yeah.
literally had like a black gap on either side. Like it was loose,
Oh,
loose, like
fuck.
properly
Okay.
loose. So I go in for this fucking second surgery. The funny thing is, like, I have the surgery done, whatever. I come out of it, and like this time, I'm like, yeah, it is what it is. And I tell the doc, he comes in and I told him I want my implant. He's like, what do you mean? I was like, dude, I've paid money for this fucking thing. I want it.
Yeah.
So he comes in, he like gives it to me. So like the actual implants, I've got it sitting at home. So he gives me the implant, and he looks at me. He's like, I don't know how you were moving around and doing what you were doing. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, it was loose. Like I pulled it out with my finger. He's like, I didn't have to
Oh.
like chop it out. Didn't have to, like, I was like, oh, that's funny. Well, 2 days before the op, like I back squatted 220 for like three, and he just like the panic on his face. And he's like, "Yo, what happened if you snapped the femur?" I was like, "I was going in for an operation anyway." It's like, "We're sweet, we're fine." So I have the second one done. So that second one done is now it's 28. Beginning of 2019 is when this kind of starts. So January 2019. So at the time, my permanent residency in Australia is kind of coming up. I'm getting to a point in this whole thing. I do, I promise. So, sorry, you
No,
you
mate,
said
honest, this
give
is
me you
good.
said
This is
give me
so
the
good, man.
backstory of me of what this is. But yeah, so 2019 kind of rolls around at the beginning of the year, have the operation, and then at the time, like the country's kind of going to shit. And I love my country. I will always love my home. Unfortunately, it's just gone through the ringer in terms of things. And there was always and always has been a bit of this like you got to have a plan B, like just in case. You got to preempt these things. So my plan B was I had permanent residency in Australia via my dad. Um, and I had like a duration of time that I needed to obviously be there. Then it's 2 years in country and blah, 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 the result rolls over. Now, my biggest concern was if the shit hit the fan in the country, I get on a plane, I come to Australia, that's great. I have no qualifications that matter in Australia. So my
Yeah.
paramedic qualification is nothing in Australia. I can't do anything with it. I got 7 years of experience in the trauma capital of the world,
I know, yeah.
under fire,
And
all that shit, and
it means
that
fuck
means
all.
nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. They literally are like you have to go back to university. So I was like, well, I'm not doing that in any shape or form. Your country's boring in comparison to what I would go through. So I basically did my cert 3 and 4 via a company in terms of distance learning, and kind of went through the year or so rehabbing, learning at the same time, because in my head I was like, I have cert 3 and 4. The shit hits the fan. I get on a plane. I land in Australia. I can go do group instructing. I can do something. I can
Yeah.
work. I can make some form of money until I figure it out. So part of this was I had to do in-person stuff. So I actually come over to surprise my dad for his 60th birthday. And at the same time, it lines up that I do the in-person practical and shit at the same time in the same week. I was like, fucking, this is amazing. I do the in-person stuff, and the company turns around and offers me a job. And they're like, we need another trainer. We want you to teach. We want you to do this. Like, come do this. And I was like, this is kind of the opportunity that I've been looking for. This is it. I went home, I packed up my life, I sold everything in a week, and I moved countries. And that was that. I
So,
haven't gone back. I have not been back. So I moved countries, fuck, then things get super interesting, right? So start this company. I'm not going to name names of the company. The company's a fucking asshole. But land up at this company, I arrive, and like I've been talking to like their head, whatever, the guy who had, like manages all the staff, all these things, and like back and forth, good contracts. I'm like, dude, where's this contract kind of coming through? Yeah, but it's all ready to go. Like you're ready to come through. We'll start with this. So, dude, I arrive in Australia and I'd rock up at the door and I'm like, yeah, I'm here. Like, how does this process? What are we doing? And they're like, oh no, we don't have the job for you.
Fuck, standard.
And
Yeah,
I just stood, I was like, yo, I just packed up, sold my life.
yeah.
Like I'm here. Like I'm here. Long story short, I landed up still starting at the company about 4 weeks later. I probably
Okay.
should have just fucked off, but started at the company. Um, things like I'm on whatever the 3 month probation. Things start going super interesting in the company, like weird, just weird shit happening. Now, I've run some pretty good businesses in my life. Like I've got some background in quite a few other hands in pies. Running a firearms dealing company pretty does. There's a lot of things that I've got some business structure. So I started looking at like the signs of everything going on, and I'm like, we've got in person, and then we've got this online education side. And I just sit here and like this in person is just like wasting money. Like
Yeah,
why? Like, and I asked. I remember standing in the one day in like the team meeting, and I was like, why are we around? Like we cost you more money. I was like, you're putting, and you could see it, all the resources, all the avenue, all the money was going into building the online education that they were doing. And I was like, why are we here? And like, I'm asking this question because like, do I need to just go find a new job? Like, it's cool. Just let me know that like, this
yeah.
is kind of it. Anyways, there's a whole bunch of other shit starts happening. Like I start asking questions. I'm like, dude, it's the South African, unfortunately. We don't really like we don't go into things half-assed in any shape or form. And I just start kind of seeing like red lights all over the place. Anyways, going for like this, I get called on like a Friday for like a meeting. I walk in and they're like, "Yep, we're not renewing your contract. We're terminating you immediately." That's that. And I was like, "Okay, cool." So I leave.
Yeah.
And then immediately, or maybe like 2 days later, I'm standing with like my dad's like PR, sorry, head of HR at the company he works with, and she had looked over the contract that they sent me, and she asked me a question. She's like, so like, obviously this has gone kind of tits up, but like, what the other job was, whatever you were doing off the back end of this, clearly you can still do that. And I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, well, the hours that they were paying you and like the way they were paying you, it's like that was like it had to be casual employment. Otherwise, they were paying you below minimum wage. And I like looked at her and I was like, what do you mean? And she turned around and she was like, well, if you were full-time employed, they've been illegally paying you below the award rate, and you can take them
Oh,
to Fair Works and sue them. And I did. I
fuck
literally had
yeah.
to like, yeah, dude, I had to do that. I had to go back to it. They all were trying to like run around scrambling. I just find it hilarious because, and I'll tell you this off, yeah, but like if you know what the company is and who the company is, they like portray themselves as like industry leaders and
Uh,
top level, looking after staff and education. You're just like, yo, don't even pay their staff minimum wage.
yeah. Dude, there's
Anyways,
so many, like, there's
oh,
fucking so many. Like, it's ridiculous.
so
Like,
it's the whole thing. Like we start with this, it's like just a kick in the dick all the time, kind of happening with all these things. Start bad, bad tasteless. Add one layer to the mix in terms of this. So I move, obviously move countries. I've got to go for my 1 year checkup of my hip. I go to this new surgeon. We do X-rays. He looks at me and he's like, "Your implants failed." I was like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "The implant that you have right now, like you've got prosthetic loosening, it's failed." And I was like, yo, this is number two. This is 1 year post-op. This has failed. And I just
fuck,
looked at it. I was
man.
like, fail. He's like, yeah, failed. You need to have another one. And I just said to him, I was like, I'm not having another one. And he's like, okay, cool. Like, that's your choice. Just understand that you have to live with the pain and everything that's going to happen with this. And he's like, I can't recommend this. But what I'm saying to you is if you can, live with it for as long as you can, and then we'll do the next operation, because the way that you see this is with how medical advancement is and the speed in which things move. For
Yeah.
every day that you can prolong this, there's a possibility that we make something slightly better.
Right.
And I
Okay.
went
That makes sense.
I went 4 years living with that thing loose, excruciating pain, not being able, like, just daily, just fucking shit, to be 100% honest. Like, I live in constant pain no matter what. 4 years, and beginning of last year, it suddenly started getting really bad, like really, really bad, like very, very bad. And
Yeah.
I landed up I went to hospital one day, like in the middle of the night, like it actually dislocated itself. The implant dislocated
Oh.
and pulled, and it was really bad, like seriously, seriously bad. The girl that I was seeing at the time, I remember
Poor
poor
girl.
girl, poor girl, dude, because I remember her like
Ah.
something happened. Like, I rolled in bed. It was like it must have been like 10 o'clock at night, and I rolled in bed, and as I rolled, I literally felt the bone and the implant scrape on the inside. And this pain just hit me, and I just started sweating and just fucking crying. Just like a little baby crying, dude. Couldn't do anything,
Oh.
couldn't move, all this. And that's when I was like, all right, it's time. And I just was, yeah. So it landed up getting on a specialist list in Brisbane. Went for checkups, and he like looked at me. He's like, "Yep, yeah, we need to get you in pretty quickly." They put me on a cancellation list because the earliest that he could get me in was like end of last year. So it was a good like 6 months. This I was like, dude, I can't
Oh.
handle 6 months. Like, I'll
Yeah.
jump off a bridge. Like, this is bad. And got on a cancellation list, and I remember he phoned me up on the one Friday, and he's like, Monday, you're coming in. And I was like, cool.
Yeah.
Sweet, I'm coming in. And so I had the third one done. So third hip replacement at the age of 31. So I've had three
Yeah.
hip
Because that.
replacements in 10
Yeah.
years. Yeah. Yeah.
Fuck, man. Yeah. Because that's obviously the bit that I knew about it. Because obviously you were
Yeah.
posting and stuff. That's the bit I knew. Fuck, man. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's mad.
So that's like you asked, give me a background view. So that's kind of where I've come up from that. And I guess
But it kind of
like
answers so many things. Like obviously every time I see you, you're traveling, you're doing stuff, you're doing things with clients, you're like non-stop. And I just think in my head, I'm like, how the fuck does he do that? I'm like, well, because he's probably been in pain for that long. Like if getting on a flight every now and then's a piece of piss. And do you know what I
yeah,
mean?
it's
It's
perspective. You know, the one of the
yeah,
things, or not even one of the things, the greatest lesson that this entire 10-year journey, and I talk about it not just from the hip, like from the head injury, from into the hip, you from essentially, and this sounds morbid and negative to a certain degree, but like never being able to reach the potential, like that potential's there,
yeah,
that opportunity has been given to me. Like, it's always there, and something happens that it gets taken out of my grasp. Like, I got call ups, like I mentioned before that injury. I got call ups to the national side to represent South Africa a week before, and I took a hit
yeah,
knee back there, and that was it. And that's why, like, that's also why that stupid decision of prepping for 6 months and doing what I had to do. Like, I needed to prove to myself that I could fucking do this.
yeah,
Like,
gotcha.
and there's pros and cons to everything that we do, and there's I always just say the term, like, there's consequences to all of our actions. And people generally think when we say there's consequences, they think negatives.
Yeah,
And that's not what I'm talking about. Consequences is a result of. There's always going to be a result of everything we do. The consequence could be positive, the consequence could be negative, right? And it just depends in terms of what we do. And then when we live our life at an aspect of, for every decision that I make, there will be a consequence. And we accept that that consequence is a result of what I've done. We take ownership for those things. So, like, I know the consequence of me pushing for those 6 months and getting to that stage and getting on that national platform or that international platform and doing what I did. Like, I earned my national colors. Like, for me,
yeah,
that's fucking, and that from like representing Great Britain. Like, dude, that's like a thing that people
Yeah, it's a weird, you can't
It's
explain
a
it.
weird thing. You can't
Yeah.
explain it, right? But it's heightened for me from that standpoint of like, I was so close in so many aspects, and I just couldn't get there. So I had to prove to myself, no matter what the consequences were. Now, off the flip side of that, like the negative is, and you'll never be able to fully tell, but we know, like that 6 months could have created the spiral for all of these things to just kind of occur. The repetitive injury in terms of that hip, the lack of blood flow, like all of these things happening. You sit there and like, did this contribute to a 21-year-old having
Course.
a full hip replacement? 100%. No fault of surgeon, no fault of any of that. Purely my action to take responsibility from. And I do. I take responsibility over it every single day in terms of that. And that was one of the big things that, like, when I was going through the replacements and going through the rehab, and every year that it goes by, and every month that it goes by, and being in that pain and doing what I do, it's like, I made this choice.
Yeah.
I made it. No one else made this for me. I
No.
made this choice. So I'm going to suck it up. And if I'm having a great day, I'm going to be grateful for the fact that I'm having a great day. And if
Yeah.
I'm having a shit day, that's my fault. And that's
Yeah.
okay. And we just kind of continue in terms of this. And I think one of the lesson from that I take from it, and maybe one if one person gets something from this, is that when you take responsibility for the thing that you are doing that produces the result. So me doing X produces pain, or me doing X produces good. It's like you take away its power. And
Yeah.
I think that's such an impactful thing, because how many times when we've had clients, we've had ourselves, when we're sitting in that negative rut, or we're sitting in that like this sucks or anything like that, it is so fucking powerful, and it's consuming and overwhelming and really kind of like it just completely takes over you. So if you can take away its power and remind yourself that, like, I made this choice, I'm
Yeah.
here because of what I did, and you take away the power, yo, you can get through it. You can turn around and be
Yes.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm in a shit situation right now, but it's right now. And
And it
that's
also, yeah, it gives you peace as well. It gives you
yeah,
peace because it's almost like acceptance. It's the hardest thing in the world, but you allow, okay, this is the position, like you say, and okay, we have no choice but just to keep going. So what's the next step?
great. And I think, I've always said to people, and off of this experience and off of where I've been and what I've experienced, I'm I'm so grateful for the empathy that it's allowed me to develop and build, because and the example, and people are like, but how? Because you've been through such a bad thing, right? Like no one will ever understand what that is. And it's not about the understanding and
Hmm.
being at the same level. What it's about is, I know what 10 out of 10 pain feels like. So if you say to me, fuck, this is a 10 out of 10, like everything is, it's like, what I have to take from that is, I can't be like, ah, Brandon, you're a pussy. Like, you don't know what 10 out of 10 pain is. Like, I've seen worse. What I
Yeah.
have to take from that is like, how did I feel when I was in 10 out of 10 pain? What does he need from me right now?
Yeah.
Because that's the lesson. It's like, as a coach, as a person who as the job and what we do and the way that we educate and the way that we allow clients to get to the better positions, because that's what we do. We don't just guide them there. We allow them to get into those opportunities themselves. If I'm able to put myself in their shoes, I will pick the better solutions for them. I will pick the way forward for them in a better way, because I have an understanding of it. I understand what 10 out of 10 pain feels like.
Yeah.
I may not understand what the injury is, or I may not understand what the issue is, or the mental challenge. I
Yes.
may not understand that. But if I can remind myself of what it felt like for me, and it's a similarity, sweet.
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
fucking help you. I've got your
Yeah.
back. I can sort you out in terms of this.
Yeah.
And I don't recommend that every coach should go out and get injured or like experience these things.
No,
Not
but
what we're saying,
that's, yeah, but
but
that's
it's
like you say, like,
imperative.
but that's the thing as well. It's like, it's, you can't read this, you can't study this. It's 10 years of being in pain. It's like it's the constant, it's the same thing. It's like the same with any sport and like whatever it is in life. Like you don't learn, like you don't just go and Google the fucking stock market. You know, I've learned it. You don't. You have to
Yeah.
be in the chairs and doing it.
ChatGPT it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
You have to have skin in the game. At the end
Yeah,
of the day, like that's what matters in all of these things that we do. It's like, suffering. It's suffering, and people who do well, athlete career, even gen pops, like photo shoot transformations, people getting over injuries, all that. It's the individuals who can suffer the most for the longest,
yeah,
and it sounds sadistic, but enjoy the suffering.
100%. Because nothing
Because
good comes from everything sunshine and rainbows.
no,
Like
no,
that's the reality of it.
yeah, there's the
Every
saying of like you have to taste the sour to enjoy the sweet.
Yeah,
Dude,
100%.
like you
It's
hear that and you're like, that puts into perspective everything of what we're attempting to do.
Yeah, it's like you can even dip it back to anyone in childhood. Like it's like, oh, you grew up on fucking in a shithole, parents that abused you, whatever it is. Funny enough, all these kids turn out to be most of the time. They're like, if you look at any athletes at top levels, if you look at fucking whoever it is, funny enough, everyone has a bit of a shit upbringing, funny enough. Because it's
Yeah.
that kind of trauma and it's kind of these lessons and things like that that again, like you can sit here probably now and be like, you would be very grateful, be like, actually, what 17-year-old had to experience that? Like, it forces you to grow up fast. And
Yeah.
again, like, also a 17-year-old, like, in the country that you grew up in. Me, I grew up in the southeast of England, like fucking cushy. Like, you had pillows underneath your ass at all times. Do you know what I mean? Like, no 17-year-old could survive where I'm from in South Africa.
Yeah. I
Do you know
mean,
what I mean?
I no, and like, but there's two things from that statement that I think are so vitally important. One, it's the ability to recognize that. Because and especially in this day and age, like it's really hard for people to recognize and have this concept of perspective. Because
So hard.
ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what it is. And like I've seen it, and we've both spent some time in Australia. Like I find Australia very difficult. And what I mean by difficult, they don't understand how good it is. And like
Yeah.
I'm not shitting on Australians in any shape or form. I am
No, it's amazing. Yeah.
the most grateful person to be in the position that I've been able to get into, to be in that country. It's so much like home. It's very similar in terms of many aspects, other than crime and living and growing up, having to be, on guard with absolutely everything that I do. But there's always this like complaining thing that I find, and I'm like, listen, life is fucking hard, guys. Like
Yeah. Very fucking hard.
it's on the hand. Life is pain. It's like
Yeah.
and I say that not in a negative aspect. And I find some people can take that, like what I say, in like a very negative concept. None of it is negative. It's all about perspective and an understanding of like when we understand what that is and what we're talking about, we are able to really zoom out and be like, fuck, I'm in such a positive position. I'm
God, yeah.
so grateful for the ability that, like, dude, Gold Coast, you walk outside and like you're 5 minutes from the beach. The
Yeah.
sun's going most of the time. Yeah, maybe there's a fucking rainstorm every now and then, but dude, no one's trying to rob me at the
Yeah.
traffic light. Like, dude,
Yeah.
so one of the things back home is like you get to like a traffic light when the car stops. Like one, you have no bags visible in the car ever, because
Yeah.
they come through the window. They take a spark plug and they hold it in their hand and they hit the window and they come through the window and it's called a smash and grab. They smash
Yeah.
the side of the window and they grab something out the car and they fuck off. So that's the first thing. Two, there's people walking up and down selling you stupid shit all the time, and sometimes you get a knock on the window and you've got a fucking barrel of a gun that you're looking at because you're about to get carjacked. And
Yeah.
until you experience that,
Yeah.
yo, the stupid idiot drivers in Gold Coast, nothing. I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna swear at them and that's fine, and then like continue on from that. But it again, everything comes down to perspective. Everything comes down to that idea of like everything we do has a consequence, positive or negative. But
Yeah.
consequence is that fantastic word that I love using in those aspects.
It's so true, man. No, not many people like. Obviously, I've done it, but I've talked to a lot of people like you have and things like that. Not many. I've never heard of it. You kind of. I personally, I'm aware of like consequences of vice versa, good and bad, but I've never heard it come out and explain like you have. So that's good, and I think that's definitely going to like hit home with a lot of people. And it's up to people if they want to take it as a negative or positive. It's up to the individuals how they want to hear things and how they want to read things. It's entirely up to them. And if anyone knows you, it's definitely not coming from a negative light because you're
Yeah,
far from
yeah.
a negative human being. Like,
Yeah, and that's it's interpretation of things is how we comprehend.
yeah,
So it's like listening is such an interesting concept when we look at it. Obviously from an actual neurological perspective, but when everyone's like, you don't listen to me, it's like there's a difference between listening and comprehending.
yeah, very true.
Such a big difference there. It's like I'm more than welcome to sit here and listen to you talk. But if I can't comprehend and I can't take the time to actually take in everything that you're saying and reflect on it and listen to your views and put those up against mine and ask myself questions of like, do I resonate with that? Do I not? Do I have a different thought process? That's comprehension.
Yeah,
That's true understanding from a listening thing. And that's why like I love podcasts. I love listening to podcasts. I love talking on podcasts. I love doing all of these things because it has this ability to comprehend. People can
yeah,
comprehend different things and interpret it and take something from it, or fuck, I don't like what he's saying and fuck off. That's it.
yeah,
And you're more than welcome to do either of those. And that's
exactly.
like, I think that's why I find longer form content to be so,
Oh,
powerful.
it's so much better, man, because it's like for me, it's like especially with this modern day age, like you say, it's like people's it's very short. Like you say, like you have
Yeah.
to like, for example, like you go back to talk about suffering. I'm like, in order to achieve a lot of good things, you have to suffer for much longer than you think, like way longer than you think.
Like,
And the world doesn't sell you things like that now because the attention span and all this sort of stuff. So if someone can sit down and listen to an hour of something long form instead of just 30 seconds of clickbait, you are going to gain personally saying I'm the same as you. I gain so much more knowledge through long form content than anything else. And it's that you become like a normal fucking human being. You become like a real person. Like, and
well,
you become
yeah,
relatable. You can
yeah,
understand. Like,
yeah.
that's it. Because if
That's
I
that's
just
it.
saw, before I was like, oh man, he got his hip replaced. Like, just because it's an Instagram post, I was like, oh man, that sucks. Then you go, okay, dude's been doing it for fucking 12 plus. Do you know what I
And
mean? Yeah,
yeah,
do you know what I mean? Then there's like context. And I'm like, every time I see you now, I will see you differently.
yeah. This
Do you know
that's
what I mean?
and that's and I think that's the beauty of kind of what you're doing with these podcasts. This is to bring forward individuals that whether whether one person gets impacted from this conversation or not. Like job
Yeah,
done. Job
yeah,
done. So if we
yeah,
can make one person gain some form of insight from this, I think it's fucking cool. But when you sent me the link, I was like, yeah, fuck yeah, I'm definitely jumping on because I like doing these things because it's our responsibility as coaches. And I'm not just talking from like a training standpoint. I'm not talking about like in the space that we are to impact people's lives in the most positive way that we can.
yeah, 100%.
That's our responsibility.
Yeah. And we know as well, like you know from sport as well. Like I think that's a good thing when you do sport at a young age. It's you only sit back now, probably like again, like a decade for both of us down the line, be like, it shapes you in a way that's very you have a very different mindset than a lot of other people. You like you feel almost lonely because people like, especially growing up in your 20s, like no one thinks like the way that I'm thinking. Because sport and pushing yourself to that level, like you say, when you go back to transforming a life instead of just a body, what you learn from sport, training, progression. Again, can you explain it? No, you have to experience it. It's one of those weird ones, but you can
It,
relate to people. You're
it's
like,
why I think like strength training for me is so important it's this concept of delayed gratification. And you mentioned this. We live in a world and an environment where, dude, I was too lazy to fucking wait. I was too lazy. This is terrible, but I was too lazy to wait until Saturday. So today's Friday, so Saturday, one extra day for Walmart to deliver my 12 1 liter water bottles. So do you know what I did? I went on Uber Eats and I got it in 30 minutes.
Yeah,
Now, shitty example, but the example behind this is we live in a world where if you want something now,
yeah, you can
pick
get
up
it.
this thing and you get it. Okay? But the only thing
Yeah,
you can't get is better health, better strength, a better body, a better mindset in terms of this off the phone and in 30 seconds. So for me,
yeah,
strength training is the continuous pursuit of being better. It's the delayed gratification. It's the thing that we miss in this everyday life. It's the school sport. It's the
yeah,
being part of a team, whether individual or team sports. It's the doing something knowing that you are not going to get the positive result right now.
yeah, yeah, 100%. And I remember the first time I signed up to rugby. I remember doing it, and I was like, 2 weeks in, I was like, do you know what? I just don't want to do this. And then both my parents were like, no, you've committed 6 months, you committed a whole season for this team. And do you know what? Like, it's things like that. Like, you always remember, I was fucking 14 or something. I don't remember just my parents saying that, or even younger, maybe. And it's the same sort of thing. And then at the end of it, like, oh, you actually won like your county and you won like things like that. So, do you know what I mean? It's those message. This is why, like, I can't fathom anyone like again, like if I have kids in the future and things like that, I'm like fucking sport every single day. Like
Always
the
sport,
lessons you learn
always
is
sport,
insane.
yeah. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's like you said, the one of the sport provides so many lessons. One of the biggest lessons is like commitment. You say you're going to do something, you do it. Like
yeah.
stay true to your word. Like being like especially and whatever. We won't get into the men and female concepts in terms of all these things, but I genuinely think as a man in this day and age, your word is your bond. So if you commit to something, that's it. You're in.
Yeah.
You're in no matter what that kind of stands for. And it's like, and that's something my grandfather taught me. And that's something my dad has instilled into me. And like my mother like pushed me into that. And like you said, you turn around 2 weeks and you're like, ah, I'm not keen for this. And your parents are like, fuck that. Guess what you're doing? Let's
Yeah.
go. And you remember it how many years later, and you're grateful for that conversation or that at the time you would have been like, fuck. And then eventually you get into it and like the commitment is there. But at the end of the day, imagine if your parents were like, "Yeah, cool, no, you're fine. You don't have to go anymore." It's like,
Oh,
and then
it's
the next hard thing that comes along, you're just
yeah.
gonna give up.
Yeah.
That's all, I suppose.
It's the same. It's like I think that's I guess it's the kind of the sad thing about bodybuilding nowadays. It's very fashionable. It's a very fashionable industry now, and I feel like that every 2 minutes, everyone pulls out of a prep and things like that. I'm like, okay, there's fair enough. Like you say, the only reason you should be pulling out a prep is if your health is purely on the line. And the sad thing is that again, you can go down. There's two different types of people. I'm like, I'd be the arsehole that probably thinks can I push my health like an extra 12 weeks? Can I do
How much Entonox gas can I take?
it? Yeah,
Like,
that's
when do I pass out on this fucking green whistle? Yeah, yeah, that's the
yeah.
one. That's it.
But then also as well, that's your threshold. That's your tipping point. So then you think anything lower than that, I'm like, I can do it. It's fine. So it's like that weird one being like, again, like we've all done like a prep or whatever it is. We've all done those phases where you're like, I was fucking the worst one of my entire life, but you're like, every other one will be so easy from now
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Just-
Perspective.
there you go.
This comes
No,
back to this perspective aspect. Yeah.
no, it does, man. That's insane. No, like honestly, like thank you so much. Honestly, like I really appreciate you just absolutely
No,
just
no.
yeah, it didn't it's one of those ones where I was like I was a bit like I was gonna cry halfway through. I was like, fuck. I was like man, that was insane.
It's
Just
Yeah, I appreciate the jumping on all of that stuff. And I guess not many people know the full story, I guess, from that standpoint. So It can
No.
sometimes be a little bit of a shock when individuals hear the full thing regards to all of that. But dude, as I said, I appreciate the invite that you shot it. I was like, yeah, fuck it, let's do it, let's get it on. Um, but yeah, dude, I think what you're doing, and just again being able to impact one person in these
Yeah.
conversations makes everything we do that much worthwhile. So it's cool to see people doing shit like this. I
Yeah.
absolutely wish that I could push it further and harder for you in every shape or form.
No, amazing, man. Appreciate it. What's the plans for you this year? Because obviously you're New York in New York in New York at the moment.
Just a thrive in chaos. That's the plan. Like that's the continuation motto of life. So New York, Melbourne, Thailand, possibly a Germany trip in there, and then stateside again towards the end of the year for amateur O's, competitors, those types of things.
Okay, cool. Yep,
Um,
sick.
yeah, teaching. Yeah, it's fun, dude. I just again, everything I've been through from the time period, if I can uh, impact as many people as I can, not just from a coaching standpoint, but get in front of people, teach,
Yeah.
do all of these things. I'm going to be the first one to try and do it as soon as I can, even if it doesn't make financial sense. I think at the end of the day, I don't do this for money. Like money's cool, like it allows me to buy more energy drinks, but ultimately, at the end of the day, while we're in these periods of our lives that we can make the most amount of impact, I think we should take advantage of that. So yeah,
Yeah, fuck yeah.
just
Have you
doing
got
the things.
yeah, good on, man. Have you got any seminars whilst you're in the US this time, or is it just client stuff this time?
Client this time. I had some like personal stuff with one or two different gyms about 2 weeks ago. That was pretty cool. And then we
Nice.
got seminars. When did we got we got seminars starting end of the year, beginning of next year. We do our level three. So we basically take off all the NFL athletes, NHL athletes, and a couple of the baseball guys from like the Yankees and stuff come down to our facility down in Tampa.
Oh,
So we
cool.
take students, students get to work with them, which is very stressful because they are worth a lot of money and you don't want to break them. Yeah, at one stage, I remember maybe it was 2 years ago or one of the years we had like in the facility itself, the individuals that were busy training and being trained by obviously all the students and stuff was worth something like $300 billion. And I was like, oh, like I really hope like the personal liability insurance is really good because that's all you need. Like
Yeah.
it's funny. I don't know if you ever heard like how much like strength and conditioning stuff you kind of been into, but one of the most like famous quotes in terms of strength and conditioning, like what's your job? Like what's your role? What do you do? It's like I make sure athletes don't trip over things in the weight room. Like
Yeah, I can
and
imagine that.
like some honestly, like when they're worth that amount of money, that's it. That's
Yeah.
you're literally just like, don't fall. Like we're gonna make you stronger, better, faster, but like I don't need you fucking getting hurt. Because if you get hurt, like that's a lot of money. So yeah,
Ah,
that's a whole nother level of risk when you like walk in and you're like, okay, this is different. So yeah,
yeah.
that's into next year. But the fact that I have to plan my years 18 months in advance is pretty fucking wild, I must be honest.
Mate, that's exciting. Mate, like that's like you say, whilst you're fucking young and you're still doing it, like just embrace it, right? Like you say.
All in. All in or nothing.
No, amazing, man. Where can people find you and things like that, or like anything from all these different areas? What's the best way to kind of
Yeah.
stalk you
The
in a
best
sense?
best way to get a hold of me, Instagram at Coach James Mack. I educate for Prescript, so that's pre-script.com as well. We all do our courses up there. Instagram page is also Prescript or Prescript. Um, that's pretty much it. Just shoot me a
Sick,
message
sick.
there if there's anything I can ever help with. Please reach out. I'm always keen for a conversation to help in any shape or form. And then obviously, man, as I said, like thank you, appreciate you inviting me on.
Anytime,
It's
man.
been a good one.
Anytime.
Yeah,
I was gonna ask you one question. So
maybe.
because it is obviously the 1% podcast, I can imagine what you're gonna say. What is that one sentence that can take someone 1% further forward tomorrow, that one step forward?
How you do one thing is how you do everything.
Yes.
I got that
Simple.
tattooed. I got that tattooed on the side of my ribs. One of me and my best friend have got that tattooed in the same position, same side. And the idea behind that is like, yeah, I've had some individuals fight me on that statement. And the idea behind that is once you set a standard for yourself, make sure that you are always trying to uphold that standard
Yeah.
in
So
every
true,
shape
man.
and form
So
and way.
true.
That's a big one.
Yeah, it's very easy for people to let their standards drop. Very easy.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, amazing. Sick. No, I love it, man. Absolutely amazing. I'll put down all your descriptions or all your links and stuff like that to everything below in
Oh,
the captions as well, man. Mate, honestly, absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. That was fucking epic. I loved it.
appreciate it, man. Have a good one.
Will do, bud. Thank you.